honestly, even before I started playing a few more rounds here or there when I got the chance, having the conversation with these folks was really quite simple because of how universal these problems that I was describing were.
Welcome, everybody, into another episode of Fairways to Fortune, a podcast where we talk about using the golf course to find success. I'm Joe Canfield, the founder and CEO of Fairways Relationship Management. I'm sitting down with Zach Wiliams today, who is the co-founder of driveforce.golf. Zach, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, Joe, real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm pumped to talk with you, Zach. We met, over LinkedIn. I believe you reached out to me. You saw I was the golf coach and said, hey, I've got a product that you need to try out. And we connected over Zoom probably a couple months ago. I remember I was down in Las Vegas with the family and was chatting and we had a good talk, and you sent me out some samples, and I've been able to use the product for a little bit, but let's start chatting just a little bit about your background in golf and why golf for you, and why the sport kind of drew you to wanting to start a business in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to be as brief. And yeah, by the way, just on the finding you on LinkedIn, I thought that was really cool because when I saw your description, it was golf coach, but then it was this aspect of business, consulting for how to use golf and as a business development tool, which I wanted to learn a lot more about. So I thought that was super awesome. Glad that we connected over it. But to answer your question, golf was not exactly the intent at the beginning. I developed an interest in nutrition after a bit of a health scare, and then developed that into a passion for sports nutrition as I began pursuing fitness as a lifestyle. Began sort of tinkering with formulations of my own. I thought, a different philosophy for what products could be, in that, effective for, the activity that it's intended for, but also equally as healthy for you as well, uh, in quality of life aspects. And that was kind of the brainchild behind wanting to then start a better brand in performance nutrition, which I spoke to my brother about and he was interested in. And so then we just kind of started throwing ideas against the wall. I became frustrated with the original verticals I was looking at because I'm traditionally not a golfer. I'm more of a recreational athlete in the calisthenics world and so on. But those areas were just hyper-saturated with like-sounding products that even if I felt I could make a really good one, just didn't feel like an easy pitch to break into with all that noise going on.
Right.
My younger brother, who's co-founder with me, he's actually the golfer. The first poster that he ever had on his wall was Tiger Woods.
Nice.
And he said, why don't we look at golf? And, I definitely swung the club when I was a kid and I respected the sport. I saw a lot of unique aspects of it that were very different, but I didn't know enough about what a golfer does playing to know exactly what they might need. And so, I sought out golfers to interview. And that was where it started getting really interesting for me. Within just a few conversations, I determined that the golfer is a very unique endurance athlete. They require consistency across 18 holes played in, 4 to 6 hours of time, and almost universally complained about symptoms of fatigue and dehydration, particularly on the back nine.
Right.
Upon discovering that, the suggestions that I was reading or that they were spouting back to me that the industry was telling them to address these issues sounded incomplete or in some cases wrong.
Yeah.
Like one was 20 grams of sugar per hour. I said to myself, the golfer is an athlete, but they're not a football player. That just doesn't seem to click.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, the discovery that there were no products specifically geared towards golf as an athletic sport, much like every other sport out there has in droves if you go to any GNC or like CVS supplement
Yeah.
section.
Yeah. Well, to your
So
point
then
about
that,
20 grams of, sorry to cut you off, but to your point of 20 grams of sugar, I was out playing this last weekend and was eating gummy bears because that's like that little bit of sugar. Because I had a hockey coach in high school that swore by, he had a bag of peanut butter M&Ms on the bench. And he's like, every shift you got to come off and you got to eat a couple peanut butter M&Ms. It's going to keep you going throughout the whole game. And I always thought that was
well,
so
you know,
goofy.
I mean, and in terms of like a sport like hockey, where the intensity is revved up
Yeah.
for
Golf, you're walking
an
around,
entire
right?
play session.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only real moments of true force production happens 18 times with a rest period of 10, 15 minutes in between, at
Right.
least, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, just realizing all of these factors for the golfer, especially that no one was seemingly making anything using sports nutrition to solve for these core problems that they were experiencing. Uh, I put it upon myself a challenge. Can I, based on what I believe the problems are, create a healthy, single serving pre round collection of ingredients that would ensure the player does not fatigue, dehydrate, or develop brain fog for an entire round of golf, and also, promote physical recovery so that the cumulative fatigue that golfers complain about from those multi-day tournaments or multi-day golf vacations doesn't affect,
Yeah.
their subsequent days of play either.
Yeah.
So, got that idea in my head and went into a garage with uh, ingredients that we sourced from bulksupplements.com in a gram scale. And I just started tinkering away at a prototype. And when I basically come up with what I would like to say is 80% of the solution, we wanted to go get validation from somebody that mattered in the industry.
Yeah.
An instructor was immediately the person that came to mind. And so we found Adam Koloff, who's an NEPGA instructor of the year 2 times. And he had a teaching bay out in Woburn, Massachusetts, which was pretty close to us.
Yeah.
So we got in the car and we just drove there. And this is during COVID, mind you. So you
Yeah.
just got to picture two guys, mixed guys, come off the street with masks on, looking for Adam Koloff, who's also got a mask on, who then looks at us and, well, you Adam Koloff? Oh, yeah. And then I raise a bag
You pull out a
with little
bag of
bags
white
of
powder.
powder. It's like, I got something here I'd like you to try.
First
The
dose is
look in his,
always free, right? Yeah.
right. I mean, the look in his eyes, I'll never forget for as long as I live. But, we talked to him for a little bit. It took a little bit of convincing, but he said, sure, I'll try it. And then a week later, he called us back and was like, okay, you guys got something here.
Yeah.
It's replaced my 4 coffee a day habit to a 1, and I'm using it to teach all day,
Mhm.
which was a great proxy for, 18 holes of golf, right? If you're coaching and you have 8 lessons
Yeah.
across 6 to 7 hours, he wanted to teach the same quality lesson at the end as he did in the beginning because they're
Right.
paying the same money.
Yeah.
And DF helped him do that without the caffeine.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
so he became one of our first early investors and is on our board currently.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that about the golf world is you can approach pretty much anybody in a pro shop and you know that you instantly have that connection with golf. And so you show up looking sketchy with a bag of white powder and he didn't freak out, right? It was like, okay, well, I understand customer service. I'm going to talk to these guys
Yeah.
and see what's going on, right?
I've seen crazier things.
Yeah, right. Other weird stuff has happened. Well, I know for me, I've used the product a few times, and I don't want to focus exclusively on this, but I know I used to be like a hot dog at the turn kind of guy, right? Hot dog, Dr. Pepper, and then we'll go play the rest of the holes. And as I got older, that doesn't really work anymore. First of all, my metabolism's changed and all that kind of stuff. And I remember the first time I used the product, I was playing in a scramble for a fundraising event and drank it on the way to the course. And I remember being on like the 16th hole and going, are we really 16 holes into this? Because it feels like we're 8, 9 holes. And it wasn't playing particularly fast. You know, those events last 5.5, 6 hours. But I remember having that thought, like, I feel really, really good. I'm hitting great shots still. And I feels like I'm maybe 7, 8 holes into a round right now. And so I can give my personal testimony of the product. It carried me through 36 this last weekend, which is fantastic. But you've got some partnerships that you have built at the college level, and so not just older guys. And I'm not really that old. I'm early 30s here, but you've got some college teams that you've been working with, and have some incredible feedback from them as well.
Yes, that actually was due to a good friend, Brian Jacobs, who I'm actually going to visit in Florida this week. He's the DOI at Ball and Owls Country Club.
Okay.
So I met Brian about 2.5 years ago when I sent out 150 emails to New York-based instructors offering free samples, and Brian was the only guy that responded and said, yes, he'll take free samples.
The 149 people are missing out.
He's been using the product religiously, daily, for like the past 2 years. And last year was a bit of a tough year for us because of an inventory mishap, which I can get into if you want, but it was a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, he invited me to the PGA show under his ticket, and he let me shadow him for the entire PGA show, and he was just cool. Introducing me to his friends.
Yeah.
And among them was Stan Sayers, who's an instructor out in Colorado and also the assistant coach for the Colorado Christian School. And, it was interesting, actually, when I was talking to him, all the things that I said, the one thing that actually caught his attention the most that he told me was when I said, DriveForce makes it so that you don't have to worry anymore about what to eat or drink to maintain performance throughout your rounds.
Yeah.
That was something that it just immediately clicked with him, and he said, okay. And so he tried it. He liked it. He brought it back. He convinced the team that it should be something that they should try. And then from that point forward, they became the first collegiate team to use DriveForce for the entire season.
That's awesome.
There was a lot of really awesome data coming out of that, but then they went on to win the NCAA Division II national championship, and have been giving us a lot of credit for helping them get through some of those tough days, because the word that they like to use to describe what it did for them was freshness.
Yeah.
They just kept on staying competitive throughout the grueling tournament days because they were not faltering when it came to the symptoms of dehydration or fatigue that they normally expect.
That's awesome.
I think the one that they seem to point out to when they say, like, you see this as an example, is they climbed 7 spots, I believe is the number, during the super regionals to qualify for the finals.
Yeah.
My understanding is that sort of thing just normally doesn't happen.
No, that's a lot of strokes to make up. Yeah. Usually go the other way. Yeah.
Right. There are great stories there. I mean, I could go on and on because I was following them very closely for the entire time because it's such a big deal for our company.
Yeah.
But to have it become a non-negotiable must-have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, Zach, you mentioned when we first started talking here that you weren't a huge golfer growing up, right? And
correct.
Now you're out here talking to all these people that's their lives. They're making money off golf. They teach golf. They're coaches. They're playing in college. How have you been able to go from a non-golf background to being able to talk to all these people? And I'm assuming you play a lot of rounds with these kinds of guys, right? You said you're headed down to Florida. I'm assuming you're going to play a couple rounds, have some fun while you're there, and have those conversations on the course. How has that been? And have you seen that as a barrier that you're not necessarily like consider yourself a golfer growing up to building these relationships at all?
I think the barrier was in the beginning that we didn't play that much golf, and we're just poor founders of startups. So golf is a rather expensive sport
Yeah.
um, to play, let alone learn. Also, um, but no, I honestly, even before I started playing a few more rounds here or there, when I got the chance, having the conversation with these folks was really quite simple because of how universal these problems that I was describing were.
Yeah.
Um, they all identified with them as soon as, I started describing them. And so long as, I convinced them that what I was telling them about the product was real and they gave it a chance, they more often than not came back with the feedback that the product works and that
Yeah.
it's exciting from different angles for any number of people why that was cool to them,
That's cool.
right? Like Adam Koloff with the instruction, right? Or the CCU men's golf team and how it kept them with their competitive edge. But I also love having conversations with some of our 60, 70-year-old players who thought that, their best rounds are behind them and they were, because of age, no longer able to walk 18 holes of golf.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow with the use of our product, they find themselves in similar situations to you, like, at hole 16
Yeah.
and you're like, I'm still going.
Yeah. I feel
Um,
great.
that's cool.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, one of the big benefits that I noticed. So a couple weeks ago, I was down in South Carolina. I live out here in Utah. My house sits at like 6,000 feet above sea level. It gets hot, but it's dry, right? And so it's not really that big of a deal. You drink some water, you're good to go. But when I go play in places that are humid, like I feel myself getting dehydrated super fast, right? And
Yeah.
this doesn't only affect my golf, but it affects like the way that I think and like the conversations that I'm
Mm.
having with the people that I'm with. And for me, when I go out and play around a golf, that's why I'm out there. I mean, yeah, playing great golf is fun and I want to go shoot under par every single time I go play and get better at the game. But like for me, golf is all about the connections and having conversations. And I was in South Carolina with my dad, and due to some circumstances, the other two that usually play with us weren't there. So it was just me and my dad playing golf, right? And I was able to have awesome conversations with him about all kinds of stuff that, even as like a kid, I probably wouldn't have like been able to get that kind of time and think through these things and have those types of conversations. And it was because I was thinking clearly. I was hydrated. I had the drive force in me, and I
That's
didn't
awesome.
realize till like after the round, like, holy cow, like my brain was super clear. And those are the kinds of things that I try to help with when I coach people about using golf for businesses. It's like, you need to have a clear mind. Like golf is the secondary activity. And so finding what you've done, and then it's almost like steroids, right? Like it's such an enhancement to like the way that you think on the golf course, that talking and having conversations just becomes so much easier because you feel good, right? You're not worried about, I'm
Right.
dehydrated, I'm tired, I need to take a nap, right?
Right. No, it's true. What is it? Mild dehydration is a state at which, most people can't even perceive. Yet every study that's ever been done on a performance measure shows that mild dehydration affects negatively performance at any
Yeah.
level. But
Yep.
if you start feeling thirsty, you're past mild
Yep.
dehydration and you're playing catch up. And
Yep.
so everything from how you're going to pick your golf swing to like remembering something to have a conversation with your dad about, they're all tied in.
Yeah.
And that was something when it came to making the formula that just seemed really important. It's a long game that requires a lot of finesse and fine motor skills and decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And either your competitiveness or your ability to maximize the joy of being out there can hinge on how well you're able to withstand the 4 to 6 hours of time that is required to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's, to me, that's what I think is the most fulfilling aspect when customers get the product. Is a lot of them don't notice until the very end.
Yeah.
But suddenly when they realize what's happening, golf is just more enjoyable
Yeah.
because they're not tanking, they're not struggling to think as much as they did
Right.
before.
Well, and after
Um,
18 holes, I got to walk off the golf course and come home to 3 crazy little children that want all of my time and attention too. So I can't be going home, laying on the couch and taking a nap, right? I gotta stay sharp.
Hopefully it's helped in that regard too.
It has 100%. Zach, I want to talk about your experience at the PGA show. You said Brian invited you down. And I just
Yeah.
want to hear a little bit about, what that was like, what you saw while you were there. I know a lot of people talk about, it's the place for anybody in the golf industry. Take me through that experience a little bit.
Yeah, well, just it was really a last minute decision. Booked the flight like a week or two before, hopped on, got there, found Brian very quickly because, he like, just the salt of the earth kind of a guy. He was committed to, hanging out with me. And I just spent a lot of time walking around with him, meeting the people that he knew. I even found my way in the executive dining hall
Yeah.
upstairs with
Nice.
him and Ted Ibarguen from Duke and a couple of other Duke folks,
Nice.
which I was very humbled by, and that was cool.
That's
Um, Ed Ibarguen, if I'm not mistaken, is the gentleman that originally helped teach Michael Jordan how to swing.
awesome. Okay.
Um, and so that was really cool, like hearing a few of
Yeah.
those stories.
Yeah.
Um, and then just, because we were at a bit of a lull in the company due to just a really unfortunate inventory kerfuffle. Uh, it was very reassuring to be there talking with these folks and recognizing that the problem still exists and people's curiosity around how to fix it was still there.
Yeah.
And so it was a real kick in the sort of spirit that I needed
That's awesome.
at a very rough patch for the company.
That's awesome. Take me through kind of the way that you think. I mean, you're in a room with people that have no idea who you are, right? They don't know what drive force is, and everybody knows who they are, right? How does
Right.
where does your mind go when you get into kind of a situation like that?
My mind goes now to just have a friendly conversation
Yeah.
and listen and respond to the things um, that they're interested in. And if because people in golf like to know what each other's uh, you know in their circle are up to.
Hmm.
The question will be asked, "What do I do?" And then that's when my opportunity to explain
Yeah.
comes in. And I put it in this context only because since there's no precedent for the kind of product that we've made for golf, the moment my mouth opens and starts explaining the product to people, a lot of conversation comes out of it.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so I've discovered that like the best way to not overstep is to let the question be from the people I'm meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
Or an introduction, like, Brian would say, "Oh yeah, this is Zach from driveforce. Tell me about driveforce,"
Yeah.
and then I go for it, right?
Yeah. That's really
But
cool.
yeah,
So when I
try not
first
to step on toes is what
Yeah,
I'd say.
right. Yeah, yeah. When I first started playing golf for business, I was like 22 years old. And I've told this story 100 times, but I got an invite to go play in a scramble, and I'm playing with people that I literally have no business having an audience with. Right? They're executive vice presidents. They're been in their company for 25 years, and I didn't know how to have those conversations. And so that's why I asked that question, because when I work with people, a lot of the thing that I come up with that I run into is, hey, I don't know how to connect with these people. I don't want to go spend
Hmm.
4 hours with them on a golf course because I don't know how to connect with them. So I
Right.
love that insight that you gave. And usually the answer is like, look, like they're just people too. Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They may be mildly more successful than you are at this moment, but they were in your shoes at one point, right?
Yeah, most likely. And people are people. So if you approach them like they're not, I've seen that just crash and burn conversations faster than, anything else. So
Yeah.
trying to manufacture the moment too much has never been something that I've looked favorably upon, because anytime I've ever tried it, my hit rate on success is, below 50%.
Yeah, I know the last time we talked, you were talking about, and you mentioned this with Adam and just kind of rolling in there cold. That's a totally different approach to sales and building relationships, right? We
Right.
chatted a little bit about you were going to go into some PGA Superstores, and I'm interested to hear where you're at with that. But what's your approach to it's cold calling, right?
It's pretty much cold calling right now, because of, the need to raise an angel round. I like to call it guerrilla warfare.
Yeah,
So I'm just wearing my heart on my sleeve. I'm riding off of the successes that we just recently accumulated with, the Colorado Christian School, and just developing relationships where they come,
yeah,
and just trying to create more, opportunities to get real golf introduced to the products.
yeah.
So far, LinkedIn happens to be the place that I'm getting the most done,
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that Dave Bisbee posted
Hmm.
um, one of your posts the other day, and connecting with him on LinkedIn vis-a-vis a post that I made not too long ago led to just one of the coolest conversations about golf that I'd had in a very long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so cool, and I always want to bring up to people that people are so much more willing to help than you realize, right? People want to help. They want to see other people be successful. And in this industry, you look at like the PGA of America, there's 30,000 PGA professionals in the world. And can look at it that they're competing head to head against each other for students or for
mm,
lessons or whatever. But at the end of the day, everybody just wants to be helpful for each other, and they want to grow golf.
mm,
They want to make it more exciting for people to get a part of it, because we know that the more golfers there are, the more opportunity we all have, right? And
right.
which leads me to how often have you actually invited somebody out to go play 9 holes with you or go play 18 holes with you, and talk to them about drive force while you're out there on the golf course?
To be perfectly frank, not very often lately, just because the belt's tight.
Sure.
I mean, I'm in straight up bootstrap mode.
Yeah.
Um, but I have gone out to hit, balls with a couple buddies at the driving range, out in Stone Meadow out in Lexington. That's where my
Mhm.
grandfather used to take me when I was a little kid, when I
Nice.
come visit, from out of, I grew up in Taipei, Taiwan, just as a
Okay.
context to that. So
Yeah.
used to come visit my grandparents who lived in Lexington here for like Christmases and summers. And Stone Meadow is the one we always used to go to because he lived right next door to it.
That's awesome. That's
But
cool.
I would like to get out there more. I definitely will say, for my own sake, that like when I made the product, uh, I had a really good idea why, um, it would work. We went and validated it with real golfers, so then that confirmed to me that it works.
Yeah.
But it was like a year after that moment, just getting the company like to a place of where it was actually a company, that like I actually
Sure.
went and played my first real round of 18. And at that moment, I understood, like, almost viscerally why the product is needed at
Yeah.
this point in time,
Yeah. I think
because I didn't have mine with me, stupid, founder of a golf supplement company. And by just full six, I was like, oh my God, like, I got, I'm tired already.
That's hilarious. That's funny. So I always carry for my business. I always have like a run of sizes of golf gloves in my golf bag. And if I'm going out and just like playing a random round or whatever, and I'll hand at the end of the round, if we've made a good connection, which typically we do, I'll hand them a golf glove and kind of like say, hey, call me sometime, right? How much product do you carry in your bag if you are out playing?
Oh, I'll bring at least 100 sticks.
There you go. You
Yeah,
just walk down
split
the
between
driving
two
range and
players.
hand it to, yeah, here you go. Hey, try this, try this, try this.
I wouldn't necessarily do that, but it's more like if I'm going out and I know that I'm going to be meeting people.
Yeah,
Golfers can be. It depends on the day, it depends on the crowd, but they can be very opening um, when you're standing in certain areas. I've discovered,
right.
and if you get a moment to like talk about what you do, um, that's an opportunity I don't want to let go by.
Yeah,
If I say, yeah, supplement company, oh here,
yeah. Here's one I got. Yeah, I keep
yeah,
thinking about tennis for some reason because there was the whole like it was Djokovic, and I think it kind of started with like Andre Agassi, where they had like their secret formulations of in their water bottles, and they wouldn't let anybody else know what was in there. And like I thought that was so funny when it still happens too. Like they've got their nutritionist sitting in the stands and like, okay, the match is lasting 3.5 hours instead of 3 hours. Here's what we're going to put in the bottle this time and hand it over to them. I think about that and like I wonder, are you aware of any of that? And like, did it play into any of the product formulation? Like, kind of thinking through like, okay, endurance athletes are obviously using this stuff, but like I always thought that was so funny. You'd see him hand the water bottle over, and I noticed um, at the U.S. Open, Bryson was pouring stuff into his aluminum water bottle as he was walking. I'm
sure.
curious if you're seeing more and more of that, or if people have approached you for like custom formulations.
No one's approached us for custom formulations yet, except when they talk about, why aren't we doing other sports?
Yeah,
Um, the What do I think of that? This is an interesting question. So a couple, junior specific golf coaches that I've had the pleasure of speaking to over the years, like Trevor Hypolite out in South Florida at the Ledbetter Academy, Merrick Morgan out of Oregon for Dragon Golf Academy, Chris Smeal at FCG. When talking about the subject of performance nutrition in juniors, a couple things have stood out. And one, trying to communicate the importance of golf nutrition to junior golfers is the single most difficult thing to get into their heads.
yeah, they're the hot dog at a turn. Yeah, that's what they want.
Yeah, yeah, they're thinking about so many things. They're fresh, into the game, and like nutrition hasn't even blipped in their mind as like matter. But two, for the more self-aware ones, and this goes back to like my first conversations with golfers, asking them, so what do you do when you're like not playing around with your boys and you're actually, let's say, going for your amateur card, right? Like
Yeah,
what's your switch in protocol for those days to make sure that these problems we're talking about don't happen? And the responses were clearly, I'm looking for a good answer. I know that I should be doing something different, and I definitely won't be doing the same things like drinking beers with my boys on the day that I'm going for my amateur card. But
right.
I also really don't actually know that I can tell you what my protocol should be.
Yeah,
And in talking with the junior instructors, something that stuck with me was one, I can't remember if it was Mirig or it was Trevor, but they said that a couple of their students characterized their golf careers around sports nutrition with, I want to get to the PGA level so that I can have my, personal nutritionist and
yeah,
my, personal chef so that I can play golf, to the next level.
yeah,
And, I listened to that and I just thought to myself that just does not need to be the case.
yeah,
Um, that in many ways, I'd look at the Drive Force formula as democratizing of golf sports nutrition because it's not so difficult in my mind that it needs to be in the hands of purely the elite.
yeah.
And it should require the expense of a registered dietitian and a personal chef following you around everywhere.
Yeah, you don't need a guy walking around mixing us stuff for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Yeah,
that's why we say with DF, it's like, it's the fact that golf is already hard enough to worry about what to eat and drink when and where
yeah,
also. Drive Force free round takes it off of your plate, pun intended, so
Yeah.
that that stress is gone.
That's awesome. That's so cool to take as many elements out of it as you can. When I work with some of our coaching clients, like the first thing that we go through is like, okay, well, first thing we talk about is what's the value that you bring to a round of golf? And then we talk about, okay, how are you going to actually deliver that value? And it goes back to planning. And so my mind is like, okay, I need to start throwing nutrition in here, because if you're not fueled right, obviously you're not going to have the conversations you want to have. You're going to come off in the way
Right.
of not who you are. Right. And so one, with Drive Force, you play better golf, but two, that brain fog thing is huge, and definitely something that I see the benefit in, for sure. Zach, just what's next for Drive Force, and where can people find the product and get their hands on some of it?
Our website is up. It's www.driveforce.golf. People can reach out to me directly. I have my contact information on the contact section. I'm always happy to have conversations with people. In terms of what's next, we are in the throes of trying to raise an angel round to build infrastructure with which to megaphone the fact
Sure.
that we exist to the golf community. Um, and in the meantime, doing things like going out to visit Brian Jacobs and some of the people that I've connected with on LinkedIn in Florida, to see if I can solidify more interesting relationships like we have with Ball and Isles, and just do all the things that a two-man team uh, in Massachusetts can when it
Yeah.
comes to introducing a brand new concept of a product to such an established sport as golf.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, I think you guys definitely have the right mindset to build those partnerships, and partnerships is where things tend to take off, and people pushing the product for you. You create your own set of brand evangelists, as you will. I'm one of them for you. I'm always telling people about it. I got those boxes of samples you sent to me, and I handed them out to the groups that I was playing with this last week and said, here, next time you play, you need to try one of these. It's been good for me, and it's something that I'm definitely going to start talking with some of our clients about, as far as, hey, this is something else that you need to be thinking about when you're going out to build relationships, build connections, and try to get business done on the golf course. So, Zach,
And even just now, it's also a matter of safety too. Just on the last point, with the
sure.
heat that we've got going on. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day the three out of their foursome went home with heat stress
Oh, geez.
symptoms and got sick,
Yeah.
and she was fine, right? In a game, in a sport where you're playing 4 to 6 hours in this kind of heat, taking the right approach
Yeah.
to nutrition and especially hydration, is paramount. And there are too many stories of people getting airlifted off of courses every year,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't need to be a thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. I play in Las Vegas a lot, and you're going to get 110, 115 down there. There's one course that will actually discount the rate per degree over 100 degrees it is. So if it's 115, the normal rate's $60 or whatever it is. If it's 115, they drop it down. It's $45 to go play that day. So you get good deals on golf.
Wow.
But yeah, I definitely you got to think about what you're putting in your body and find some shade while you're out there.
Please do. Yes.
Well, Zach, I appreciate you jumping on and having this conversation with me. I wish you all the luck. And like I said, when we first met, I'm here to help you out. And I'm totally a believer in the product, and want to get it into as many people's hands as they possibly can. And hopefully we can get out and play around to golf here sometime soon. And whether that's me coming out east or you meeting somewhere in the middle, we'll have to get together and play some golf.
Oh, we absolutely will. And, again, thanks for inviting me on to this show. Sorry if I was a little rusty. I haven't done a podcast in ages. But, I'm glad we connected. This was a lot of fun, and I'm really interested in your business. I think it's really cool that that's starting to happen now.
Yeah.
Because it makes
It's coming
so much
back.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And you mentioned Dave, and there's a few others that I've met over the last couple of years that are jumping into it and doing it, which is awesome. But yeah, Zach, we'll talk soon. And if anybody's wanting to get their hands on some stuff, it's driveforce.golf. And Zach's your guy. Reach out and he'll help you out.
I will, promise.